Welcome to Seeking Alpha's CEO Interviews. Quality of leadership is a decisive factor in stock performance, so we provide in-depth interviews with the best and brightest CEOs in the public markets. We publish limited excerpts from our interviews on social media platforms and the full interviews at seekingalpha.com and in the highly rated Seeking Alpha mobile app. To find the full interviews, open seekingalpha.com or the Seeking Alpha mobile app and search for the phrase CEO Interviews, or simply type a stock ticker into the search box. Rob, welcome to CEO Interviews. Really a pleasure to have you on. So thank you so much for joining us on Seeking Alpha.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. It's an exciting company to talk about, playing an exciting sector that I feel like we all are interested in. If you're living a modern life, something about this interview is going to impact you very directly. So let's start at the beginning and describe to us what LivePerson is and where it sits in the marketplace.
Yeah, so I invented chat back in 1997, so I'm kind of like generation one and then of the internet. But if we look at where we are today, we're leading in what we call conversational AI. So we provide platforms that enable, the T-Mobiles of the world and Chipotle and, the Citibanks and 18,000 other companies to power these really connected conversations with their customers, with their consumers. And we do it not only with live agent, but we do it with automation. And that's been a real twist and turn in the last 4 or 5 years. Obviously the company's called LivePerson, but then I saw about 6 or 7 years ago that we would be able to give very high quality automated conversations, what I'll call warm conversations. It's not about automation and bots and these like FAQ things. It's about how do I have a conversation, because as humans, we kind of need it. We need to ask questions to get a personalized answer. It's not good enough to look on a website and just, scout and, add things to shopping carts. We have to ask questions. We feel like when we do that, we create a different connection. We see greater conversion rates too, but we basically got very focused on it and doing the automated AI part, which is affecting everyone's lives right now, AI and automation.
And talk to us about like how you came to that part of the marketplace, because your background is in tech and you've always been somewhat of an innovator, but talk to us about how you settled on that, or how you settled on, founding LivePerson as you contemplated, okay, how do I bring the best thing that I know how to do to this part of the marketplace?
I mean, actually my background, I mean, when I went to college, I was, English literature was like what I studied. And I guess the power of language and verse, I've always felt is important. And when, I started the company, and this is in the 90s, the websites they're kind of like they were today, which is just, they were these vending machines. And I was like, where's the people? Put the people back in the store, and that would create a better experience. And I had, like most entrepreneurs, my own personal experience of shopping online, and like, it was actually Dell Computer, I remember. And that was back in 97. And I was like, man, I was on the website and I was configuring a computer, then I couldn't get it to work. Then I had to hang up as a dial-up modem, get on a phone call with somebody at Dell. It's like, this sucks. And there's got to be a better way. And that drove me to think of this that didn't exist. I invented this technology. So we've always been innovating. Like, we took the first path towards what is now asynchronous messaging for businesses. And we launched the first customer in the world 5 years ago, which was T-Mobile, using asynchronous messaging. Like, you could message an agent at their contact center like you would a friend. And I remember the funniest story was, like, on the first couple of days, a consumer messaged, was getting help, and the agent had to take a break for lunch. And the agent said, hey, do you mind if I, text you back in an hour? I'll work on your stuff. I got to take a lunch break. And the consumer was like, no problem, because they knew the agent was going to be there. And that's what people are looking for. These giant brands, especially now in the pandemic world we're living in, or post-pandemic, however you want to look at it, people are thinking more about the connected experience with their local brands, with each other. That's what we're looking for. And the problem is, big brands have these giant contact centers and you never feel connected. You feel like you're just like a cog on a wheel of customer support. So they're driving to like, how do we create this very unique connected experience, this warm, friendly experience that a local business would give you? And I think there's going to be a massive shift right now from the big brands, and I think even Amazon, there's going to be a massive shift in people wanting a different level of connection from the companies they buy from. And I don't think the Amazons can fulfill it. Yes, they can fulfill something overnight. They can get it to my house cheaply, but I want to know about the products that I'm buying. I want to know who built them. I want to know the food I'm eating. I want to know, I buy pecans from a local farmer now down in Texas versus Amazon, because like he's the local farmer and I know he's not going to pollute the pecans I eat. And that's what's happening. So I think that shift is playing into the idea of AI and conversational AI and this personalized service.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we've gone so far to this way in terms of tech and, being kind of disconnected from our purchases, let's say, as one example. And it's become so automated and so convenient that I think so many people are going the other way. Okay, I'm sick of buying stuff from Amazon, even though it's super convenient and I still may use it for some things, but I also want to shop local for the reasons that you expressed and more. And I think probably COVID was really even an accelerator of that, even though on one hand, it's accelerated the technology and the applications and uses for technology. On the other hand, it's, I think, created an even greater desire for this authentic connection between people, using real words, talking to real people, even if they know that the process that they're going about is somewhat automated. I think it helps. And to your point about having a direct person on the other end of the line, I remember like I've been at Seeking Alpha over a decade, and I came on as an editor. And at first we would give feedback, just an editor at Seeking Alpha, and then it was, okay, we're going to start using your name. And it was like the relationship completely changed, because people were like, oh, you're a human being. I'm not going to,
Yeah.
rant at you and take out all my angst because you're a real human being. And now that totally changes the dynamic, much as you're describing. Do you see that across kind of all sectors in terms of that interest in people, in consumers and businesses kind of wanting that reciprocal approach to relationships?
Yeah, that's I mean, I think from a consumer perspective, we want that. We need that.
Right.
That's something that it makes us part of the human experience. On the big brand side, on what we call enterprise, it's very difficult. And I'll tell you what happened. There's this massive confusing thing that exists, which is this idea of the contact center. And I'll unpack it a little bit. There's been a mixed concept of what it really is. The reason it exists is because the brand has back-end systems that are not able to be faced off with the consumer in a way that the consumer can use them. So what's in between is a human to listen to a customer, and they say, my bill, I don't understand why my bill looks a certain way. Maybe it's a credit card bill and there's a charge on there. So instead of being able for the consumer to go into something and say, there's a charge on my bill that doesn't look right, can you help me? And it's automated. The back end system is not available. So there's a human that processes that, called a contact center. They go in the back end and look, oh yeah, let me look at your thing. Oh yeah, let me see. Oh yeah, okay, it looks wrong. Tell me what it. And they're doing all that work. It's a terrible job, by the way. That's why 40 to 50% of contact center people quit their jobs, because it's not. The confusing point, as I'll make, is that we kind of mix that with relationships, as in the brand says, we got people here to talk to you and they're going to create a special relationship with you. No, they're just the intermediary between a bad back-end system, which frustrates us as consumers, and the consumer experience. So people want that loving, caring thing. Now, companies like Zappos, they turned that into something special. Like, I'll be loving to you, where I'll listen to you. I'm not trying to get you off the phone. I'm trying to connect with you. So there's few and far beyond companies. So the big companies want to do it, but there's a mix that they're using this labor, not as relationship people, but as back-end people. So, and that confusion comes from like people in stores. When you connect with someone in a store, they're not connected to a back-end system trying to figure it out. They're really there helping you and building rapport with you. The problem is it's hard to build rapport when you're on a back end system that's all messed up and you're trying to fix that for a person. So automation, the vision is that we open up the back end systems, we create a front end that allows a natural conversation to connect with those back ends, remove the intermediary person, and now I've got something I want: real-time access to answering my questions. And so it was a little bit long of a response, but this needs to get resolved, because without this getting resolved, there's this still about, we have 40,000 contact center agents. They must do some good on connecting with people, and they don't. It's not their fault, by the way. A lot of them are just loving, caring people who get messed up with the back end systems.
No, I think that's such a good point. The difference between a transactional, interpersonal thing as opposed to an actual relationship between customer care and a customer. Those are two totally different things. I think you're right to point that out, and also even how customers understand it, that we can understand that there's something else to be gotten from a business aside from just the complete bare necessity of an interaction. Yeah, I think that's really important. Yeah.
And I think you hit it right on. Is it a transaction or is it an interaction? And they call it engagement, but a transaction is very different than an engagement or an interaction with a human being. So, we launched a bank 4 months ago called Bella, because, and we have a lot of banking customers. Some of the biggest banks in the world are our customers. But I felt that this problem with they're constantly firefighting the back end. They want to do good. I mean, I meet with the CEOs of these companies. They want to create this special bank. They want to be different. They want their customers to trust them. And we see there's a gap. And I've seen it. Once again, humans, even big banks, they want to do good. The people who work there want to do good, but the systems that they're operating in don't allow them a lot of times, because they spend a lot of time fixing these systems all day and trying to make them, work. So we launched a bank called Bella, built on our platform, to show the art of the possibility. And this bank is about loving, caring, equality, and trust, and conversational AI. And we've had such a great response to it. We've had about 40,000 people sign up in about 4 months. And Bella really is there to help you. Bella takes care of you. Bella surprises and delights you. For instance, if you swipe your Bella debit card, sometimes Bella pops up and says, like, I'll go and swipe for lunch. They'll say, the lunch is on me. Have a great day. Mm-hmm. And people are posting, oh my God, I was having such a lousy day. Bella paid for my lunch. Yeah. We also built then a level of community and connection between our members of the bank, the customers. Sometimes I swipe and I'll say, Rena, Rob is picking up your lunch today, or picking up your coffee. And you don't even know who I am. You're like, and then you can text me back anonymously, Rob, thank you. Or send me a little unicorn or rainbow. Thank you for that lunch. It made my day. So, like, we're taking AI and using it to create these very special moments of surprise and delight. And we're doing it as a bank.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going to say, do you approach companies, or are companies always approaching you? Like, do you ever have to convince somebody of this modern approach to, business?
Yeah, because what happens is, I go back to it, like, it's just a lot of times we get drawn into the contact center conversation, which is about saving money and back-end systems, and about reducing, and they're right, they want to reduce transactions. That's the nature of what they want to do with their contact centers. We want to reduce our touch on these ridiculous transactions. And then the talk of engagement gets very lost. And usually that sits maybe with marketing or the CEO or someone else. There are a few companies like T-Mobile blends them both and does it well. It's a Callie Field who runs that organization. She created these team of experts, and they're there to really be your, they really love you and they care, and they have this great personality. So once again, few brands have done this, but most of the time when we're brought in, we're there to strategically change the business, and we work with them to do that. It's not easy. And we have so many customers now. We grew 38% in the quarter. It's our highest growth rate in the history of our company, because more and more companies are like, we're in, just help us, we're in, we'll do this. So that's what we see today.
So, like, using the example that you used with Bella, is that something that they're looking to disrupt, as some companies are looking to disrupt the banking system and how we bank and how we use money and the transactional nature, and getting away from just the transactional nature of paying for things? This idea, and you kind of formed it and refined it into this more personable approach, or did they know they wanted a personable approach, they just weren't sure how? What's the minutia of that a little bit?
They all, I mean, when we start with these, big brands, we have big airlines, and we have Disney vacations and stuff, and Delta, and these guys, and they, especially those brands, really want to surprise and delight their customers. They want to create that special connection with them. They realize that's the nature of brand. And it's really giving them the tools and technology. So we have this platform called the Conversational Cloud, and it's very powerful. It starts with understanding the consumer intent. That's like, if I ask you a question, you ignore me. Like, if I ask you, I need something, and you're like, you just go on a tangent on something else, that makes me feel bad. That's a bot. When I type in something and the bot's like, I don't understand you, call an 800 number. It's like, whoa, that's annoying. So the first part is we have this powerful part called Intent Manager, and we can process consumer intent and really understand it. The reason we can is because we've got a very unique data set. We generate about 85 million end-to-end conversations a month through our platform. We have about 1 billion in storage, and we can use that to understand really how does consumers express themselves around different use cases, even how they will ask for the same use case to pay a bill, maybe 1,000 different ways. And we have to understand that, so then we can take that and then move that to an automation. And then we have a way to craft automations that's very powerful. The power of the crafting automations, we kind of figured this out, is put the hands of the automation in the contact center rep. They know how to converse. They know what makes consumers happy. And if you let them design the automated conversation, the bot, they're going to design it well. Then let them implement, let them supervise it, let them own it like an employee and make it better. And so that tool set, and then we have all the analytics and integrations, that's what allows us to build these very high quality automations versus what we call, a bot. Bots suck. They're just bad. Most bots suck. We know it. So
Yes.
I hate the word
Yes.
bot too. The word bot is like such a nasty word.
Yeah,
Sounds like
I think once you put the word bot, I think automatically people think of trolling, and it's nothing. It's not a positive association.
Oh,
Yeah.
we never heard of a bot doing anything good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's bots like are on social media creating profiles and messing with elections and doing so. That's what a bot does.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got to find a new name for it. So
Yeah, I would agree. So do you feel like the convincing comes mostly from the data that you're using?
yeah, I mean that's really the key to it. Understanding the data, and then the sentiment of conversation is really important, because we start with live agent transcripts, and we can understand whether that agent gave a good positive sentiment. Did the consumer feel positive about the conversation or negative? And we can take that and then abstract it into then understanding what drives positive and negative conversations, which ultimately drives a consumer feeling like they're really connected to the brand. Look, we have bots that are running. I'm going to create a new word. We call it automations. Maybe we can pick it up here. We have,
Automatic responders.
responders. I love that. That's good. First responders.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have these first responder automations. We're trying here to invent on the fly. That, like Chipotle is really interesting. When the pandemic hit, we found that obviously people didn't want to go into get their burritos built and their food, but we created an automation with them that we went live with, and people really liked it, and they configured their burrito and they had a conversation about it, and then they can go to the door and pick it up. Today, we're seeing everything from, like, we have one of the largest jewelry companies in the world. They have 3,000 locations in the US. They're using it to sell diamonds, beautiful jewelry. And I talked to the CEO the other day, and she was saying, jewelry is not a product. it's an expression of love. Most time when people are giving someone jewelry, they're giving it with an expression of love. So we want to create that connection with automation. We want to create that connection with live agents, because not people aren't going in the stores as much anymore. And we've generated, you know, I know over 100 million since November in incremental orders, just because we create a different way to sell jewelry. We're doing that with cars. We're doing that with all sorts of things. So it's going much wider than the contact center right now. A lot of that is because the data we're using and we're understanding what drives consumers to feel great, to have this positive we call sentiment.
I was going to say, like, how much has COVID accelerated your plans? Because I would imagine COVID has taken this theory and proven it out so much that, you know, it's not just this works for the consumer that's online, but this works for most consumers now that the world has changed so drastically, and probably, you know, for at least for the near future, will kind of, those changes will stay in the marketplace, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's COVID accelerated. I mean, last year we had usage on our platform went up by 40% between April and March and April. I mean, it was like massive because the contact centers got shut down. Contact center agents around the world had to go home. There's a lot of places in the world, like Philippines and India, where they don't have broadband access in their homes as a contact center agent, or they don't have back-end system access. So all of a sudden, our customers were just saying, we want to automate this stuff and we want to do it at scale. And that drove a lot of, you know, demand in our business, which continues today. Like, it didn't slow down after COVID. It's continued. Like, the holiday season was massive for us, usually is, and usually in Q1 we dip down a little bit. It's like seasonal. It didn't. It kept going. So we're seeing good demand in the business. But, you know, as I've said before, that COVID just accelerated what was happening. You know, we chose a strategy that we knew would be the future, but obviously shutting down of stores, shutting down the contact centers just accelerated what was already happening in the market.
I mean, as a CEO of a company that's kind of showing other companies how to be a modern company, how has that played into your own role of leadership at LivePerson? How much does it affect your theories around how to navigate leading a company like this, in terms of your own interactions with people and how business is done there?
I mean, I've been through a lot over 25 years. I mean, I went through the .com, you know, bubble, which most of my contemporaries lost their companies, and there's very few of us who are public from that time frame, if any. So that I understood, being in the middle of a macro environment, that we were the bubble and we had to do a lot of drastic things to survive, and we did that. Then through the 9/11, because I was in New York, and then the financial crisis was the thing we lived through, and now COVID. And so, you know, they all are a little bit different, but they all are kind of the same when it comes to, I often say you gotta lead during macro crises. You have to lead through with empathy. You have to be more aware of the employees and customers as individuals, and you got to listen to them, because people have fear, and fear is a very individualistic thing. So as a leader, you have to just, you know, lead through the fear by yourself not being fearful, and just understanding that this is just change, and change happens. It happens every day. And this is just something that feels like it's out of our control. But in the end, everything will be okay. I think I was like one of the first in April of last year. I said, we will not be going back to offices. And I started to shut down our offices, because I wanted to give our employees certainty about their lives. Like, go somewhere else if you need to feel safe. So getting into COVID, getting in was easy because we were running for our lives. I think getting back, or I'll call it getting forward, is going to be much harder for CEOs. And I'm starting now to work on what's the path forward. I don't believe this. I don't believe this is the path forward. I don't believe living in the world's largest video game is healthy. I think that this has impact on our brains. We're seeing it, as in we're always on.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we have to walk to meetings. Trust me, I'm not an old timer. If you look back in April of last year, I said, we're never going back. Yeah, trust me, I was but I see that this has a negative impact like everything, and a positive.
Right.
But we can't live in a video game forever. Living in a video game is not healthy. That's the reason it's a game. There's a reason we need to have these breaks. We need to go to meetings and walk to them. We need to get on planes and meet with people. We need to gather. And one of the things that I really, as a CEO, like, I understand the feel of the business. I don't want to lose the feel of the business. And I got a lot of the feel of the business because I'm working with people and I'm seeing their expressions. I'm talking to them. Just, you know, by the water cooler. But we can't lose that. As a CEO, you'll have problems, I think.
So how do you see it going? I mean, both for LivePerson, and how do you see it on the more macro level in terms of, you know, will it be a hybrid approach of some people working from home, some people going to the office by choice? How do you see it developing?
It's a good question. You know, there is a future that has already been created that is probably our futures. And that is what you'll see in blockchain and distributed organizations, the way blockchain companies are created, which then we have the layer of crypto on top of it. But if you look at these companies, and I've looked at them very deeply, they are companies that are built for distributed organizations, truly distributed organizations. The people who are participating in these companies are people who are, we call self-sovereign individuals. They don't take a paycheck, they don't want healthcare, and they can live anywhere on their own. They have a mentality that I'm going to be self-sovereign. And a lot of this came because they were teenagers during the financial crisis, and they realized big and centralized things are not helpful to their world. So they wanted to be independent. They've created a world in which they built when you're involved with these companies, they build the reward into the work. So if you're mining a technology and helping set that technology up for others to use, a coin is given to you. And you can then, that coin is traded, and that becomes the way you live. They have created a model for the future. Like my children who are 3, 4, and 3 months old, they'll probably live and work in this way. Then there's the way we work. So, and then you're saying there's something in between hybrid and that way. So I'm trying to say, like, the way we worked in the past is people, it's a centralized function. I get my payroll, I get my health benefits. The company has a hand in protecting me, in taking care of my life to a certain degree. So there's these bookends right now, and then we want to be in the middle. It's a very complex thing, because if you want to have people be self-sovereign and truly distributed, then they have to have a mentality of self-sovereignty. Mm-hmm. Because you can't have the hybrid where I want to be working out of my home, but I want this company to take care of me. Maybe they should take care of me. We've had it. We've heard it. Take care of my lights. Take care of my electricity. Why not pay my rent? You know what I'm saying? Pay more because I'm working. I'm just saying that what you'll see is it's a mentality. So I don't mean to make it so confusing, but I'm not clear myself, because I've seen the future and I see where we are, and the in-between is usually not a great place.
Yeah, I think it's also a strong point in terms of it's not a monolithic reality that we're entering. It's different for different people, and I think the point about it being different for different generations is a really salient one, in terms of people are also looking for different things. You know, as you said, it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach. You know, it seems to me that as a CEO, especially probably of a publicly traded company, although probably in general it's true, that you need to be somewhat of a successful psychologist and thoughtful person in terms of knowing how to navigate business and people and kind of the whole thing together. I would imagine being the CEO of LivePerson is even more psychology, because you're looking at these trends and trying to understand them and trying to understand how to kind of navigate relationships and make them, you know, the most fruitful and the most kind of beneficial for both sides. What kind of brought you to this place of being interested in that side of things? Was it something that you were always interested in? Was it forced upon you because this is what you were interested in terms of business? How did you kind of get to think about these things and develop how you think about these things?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things at play. One is we're a tech company, so we move so fast. Like every quarter, every 3 months there's something else. And then every 5 years we're fulfilling a strategic plan. So there's such movement, and we're dealing with a very young workforce. Our average age, I think, is 32, 33. Um, and so we manage a people business. Like, I don't manage product. There's a vision of products, but and we manufacture them digitally, but we're really working with, you know, how do we recruit and maintain the highest performing people in the world, because we've got to compete in this world where there's Amazon and Google and Facebook, and we're the leader in our category in conversational AI. So everyone's always got a target on our back, and we've been able to be an innovator even this much 25 years later. So yeah, I mean, I read a lot. I do a lot of work on myself. I mean, it starts with like understanding my own brain and like what motivates me and what gets me up, and then I've got to apply that to the people I work with. I take it very seriously. Like, my job, it's like a coach, and if people are sick, you got to help them. Like, there's an unspoken word about your team. And if they're working here, they don't get left behind. The day they leave, they're gone. That's just the way it is. Like, I don't have time to put on people that don't work here. So when I work here, the people that are here, I've got to care for on a level, because I want them to be the best they can be here. And they're humans. We're all humans. Like, we have a lot of bad days. We have problems in our families. We have problems in our personal life. We have problems with our health. And we can't just figure, everyone figures it out for themselves. So part of our job as a CEO and a leader is just to be there for our people, and be aware.
Do you feel like a mentor helped you get there? Were there books that you read? Do you feel like you're naturally empathic?
Yeah, I'm sensitive because I'm a creator. I create things that don't exist, and I think things up in my head. And if you're of a creator personality, which, by the way, I think everyone is on some level. We all create something in the world. I mean, you're writing, and we're all that's a creative force. I think you have to have a sensitivity. You naturally are born with this sensitivity to feeling things and understanding markets and what customers want and what the world wants, and that's how you kind of live. So, it's kind of I think most CEOs, I guess for certain professions, maybe not, but most are going to have to live with that. The thing I interviewed Melissa Bernstein for my podcast Over the Wall, and she's Melissa and David's is this Doug. It's this big toy company. She just wrote this fantastic book on her life. Amazing woman, and she talked about how dark and she has this depression. She talks about, and that depression enabled her to create these toys. And she talked about it like the artist thing of like, it can be dark, but out of that darkness, you're making these creative things. And so I think, everyone has that piece of them, and you have to be aware of that. And then how do you manage that? We have 1,300 employees. And so you have to think about how do you manage that, across cultures, across everything. So.
Yeah, to the degree where you have a toy in almost every child's playroom in the United States. Yeah, that's the balance of being a creative personality, I would think. Yeah. Do you find that there's a difference culturally between doing business in the States, in the US, and then internationally? Are there different approaches?
Yeah, of course. It's once again, I've always loved, I've loved travel, and, and internationally, I've just loved, everything about culture and cultures and different cultures. But definitely, I think you got to be really sensitive to all the cultural differences that happen, especially if you're running a global company. I mean, we at one point, half our employees were in Israel. And because we had our technology team there, it's no longer the case, but we have about 250 people there. But it's just, I had to understand that culture, understand the conflicts in the culture. I mean, it's like, you definitely have to understand that, and especially from your customer's angle. How do they buy? How do they connect? It's very different. I mean, obviously everyone talks about Japan, and Japan is like this ultimate in cultural jujitsu. You got to kind of get it right, or you really have issue with it. You know what I'm saying? So
So is that by having teams in those places? Do you feel like that's an important part of it?
yeah, I mean, we have to have people there. So it's really important. So yeah, that's kind of the key to it, is like having people there. I mean, it's hard to really get a feel for culture without having your team there. Really, people like to buy from themselves. Let's be
Hmm.
honest. That's the way life is, and they want to buy from people they trust, and usually that there's a big cultural thing there. So yeah, that's why we have 22 offices around the world, between Asia, North America, Europe, South America. Um, so yeah, so it's we that's, if you want to be global, 40% of our revenues are outside the US, so that's why we do it.
And in terms of your approach, in terms of, kind of going for the mobile approach, the web approach, the social approach, do you feel like those are different? Those are different depending on what sector you're playing in? Are they different? Like, is a social media approach different than, a mobile approach? Or does it have more to do with what each company is kind of aiming for?
The beauty of the platform and conversational commerce is that it starts with the company being able to be on brand. When you look at the websites, like if I look at, you know, Hermes's website, and I look at Macy's website, they actually look very similar. Top nav, pictures, text, maybe the colors are obviously different, but there's no like when I walk into an Hermes store, or I walk into a Macy's, they're very different, or an H&M, they're very different feeling to me, but I don't get that on the website. So what conversational commerce allows you to do is like bring your brand personality, because think of it like it's a person out there. It's someone you can put in the pocket of the consumer, and they can communicate a certain way that can be on brand. And that's why everyone kind of chooses their different automation, the way they want to bring it to the world. It's like birthing it to the world, and you can do it any way you want. There's no rules of like top nav and this. It's got to be structured because it gets indexed in the search engine and Google. I mean, that's a scam, by the way. The whole thing was just a total scam, because conversion rates on website are less than 1%. 1%, less than 1% of the people who actually click on a Google keyword and hit a website will buy. Think of that. Why? Because Google set the terms of how a website has to look and be organized. And if you were back when I was in the 90s in the internet, people were going all different ways: flash, video. They're designing left nav, top nav, and there was a lot of creativity. And then Google just set these rules, and these rules do not help brands convert consumers. They don't. The statistics are there. They enable Google to get more money, because consumers keep going back to Google to get to brands versus staying connected to the brand. Once a consumer is connected to a conversational commerce interface, it could be through a messaging client like Facebook or WhatsApp or iMessage, or in app, you've got them forever, because you can be proactive with them. That you literally can send them a message a week later, a month later: how you doing? Here's something. That's a radically different experience than they went to a website and they disappeared. And then to get them back, you got to pay someone else, which is Google or Facebook, to get them back. Or Amazon. You got to put your stuff on Amazon, which they're between you. So the big tech set it up that they're in between you and your customers, but conversational commerce, no one's between you and your customers. It's you directly connected with them on their mobile device, in their pocket.
Do you feel like that you ever talk to companies where you're like your branding, your messaging needs to be refined, it needs to be tightened up before even coming up with a strategy?
Well, it's hard to tell a brand about their messaging. So, I
Yeah.
mean, realistically, you'd love to,
Yeah.
but most of our customers have pretty succinct brands, and they've done a good job with it. And then now they just want to manifest it in a digital environment. And most of the time, they just had apps and web
Hmm.
being version one, app two, version two of the internet. And conversational commerce is really this third version that allows a very different experience, because you're always on, you're always connected. It's like the way we have connections with our friends and family. It's what we call asynchronous connection. And there's no session; it doesn't end. And I think that's what we're seeing in the power of this thing. And we say it like, own your own consumers. Just own your own consumers. You don't have to keep paying for them. I mean, it's silly that most brands pay for their consumers who already bought from them again to come back to them through Google or Facebook. Because they created this model that it's easier for me to search and go to the brand than it is for me to go to the brand directly and type in the URL. I mean, and they own the browsers too. We're using their browsers. It's a shell game, you know, it's that they won or they've won, but things are shifting right now.
Do you feel like the data is proving that out to consumers? Like or not consumers, to businesses? How are businesses understanding this movement? Or are you just feeling like because they're paying for SEO, they're seeing the SEO, but they're realizing that doesn't necessarily translate into any bottom line numbers?
No, you mean for the brand or the consumer?
For the brand, yeah.
I mean, the brands don't have it. They hate it. They just hate it, but they seemingly have no choice. But they hate it. I mean, I talked to them. They don't want to keep paying these big bills. They don't want to keep paying for their own named keywords being searched and consumers coming to them. They don't want to. They have no edge anymore because like basically everyone's in the game and the tools are really efficient to buy keywords and target consumers. They know consumers don't want to be targeted, but there's nothing they can do because that's the only way to get there. And this is the world we're living in, but it's coming to an end. It's like you know, it usually comes to an end when everything looks, you know, like these guys are they've had great quarters during the pandemic. They've done really well. That's not always that they're at their height. It could be they're at their bottom. They're starting to tail to their bottom, but there needs to be an alternative. And I think where the guys have it. So.
And do you find that it's word of mouth also, that companies that may be reluctant to kind of take on this new messaging, they're encouraged because of results that they're seeing from other companies?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it. I mean, people are, you know, we're getting a lot of customers. We're working with these great brands. We're doing these different use cases, all these different use cases. So yeah, we see it. We see it happening.
So you talked earlier about having a different strategy. I believe you said every 5 years that you kind of have a different, you know, main strategy that you're looking at with LivePerson. What are the things that you're looking at now going forward in this iteration of your strategy?
I mean, I'm looking at, you know, how do we create the stuff we're doing for Bella, you know, to give that kind of power to our customers so they could bring that loving, caring, compassionate AI to the world. And, you know, and so that's really what we're trying to bring.
Rob, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time. Fascinating conversation.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. And we're going to check out Over the Wall, right? Also,
yeah, check out Over the Wall. It's on all the podcast platforms. And if you're an entrepreneur, hopefully you'll find some goodies in there.
Awesome.